What's up everybody, Gabe here with GBR Music. Thank you so much for checking out this video and welcome to my very first hardware synth review on this channel. So if you know me and this channel, you know this is not typically the type of content I usually post here, but lately I've really gotten interested into hardware synth and subtracted synthesis as a whole and how to incorporate it into my music, and so I've been looking for the perfect synth for me. And in a very crowded market with dozens of options to choose from, one synth really stood out to me because of its versatility, because of the really forward thinking of its design, and because it's just an amazing piece of music equipment. And this synth is the NINAby Melbourne Instruments. One of the reasons I love the Nina so much is that it is such a versatile synth that allows you to make pretty much any type of music you can think of. It's amazing for electro, it's amazing for synth waves, it's amazing for film scores. There's nothing this machine can't do. Before I keep going, I think it's worth noting that I'm using the Nina with its latest firmware update, version 1.4, which Melbourne Instruments recently released and which adds some really cool new features to the unit, including some really cool new scopes and a wavetable visualizer for oscillator 3. This new firmware update also adds a feature long requested by users and reviewers of the Nina, which is Morph Modulation. I'll be coming back to that in more detail later in the video, but in short, it adds the morph knob of the Nina as a destination in the mod matrix, meaning that you can now control the morph function of the Nina with any source in the mod matrix. So you could control it with your keyboards, aftertouch, with your modulation wheel, but also with an LFO or in an envelope generator. Finally, with the latest firmware, you can change the LCD display color to high contrast, blue, pink, or green, but I think I like the traditional Nina red better, so I'm gonna stick with that. The Nina is an analog polysynth with 12 voice polyphony, but one of the things that sets it apart from its competitors is that it is the first analog synth with a fully motorized control surface. So what that means is that the Nina can save and recall presets, but also that it can display the parameters of any given preset instantly on its control surface via its incredible motorized knobs. And talking about presets, the Nina comes with an incredible library of hundreds of presets, and Melbourne Instruments keeps adding more presets, either created by their own sound designers or by collaborating with artists like, for example, Matt Johnson's, who has a bank of presets loaded onto the Nina. And if the fully motorized control surface and all the presets are not enough, the Nina still has a couple other tricks up its sleeve. First off, the Nina is a multi-timbral synth, and what that means is that it can play up to 4 patches, or in this case they're labeled layers, at the same time and output them to 4 different physical outputs in the back of the unit. One of the other really cool things about the Nina is the morph function and the morph knob, which is at the very bottom right of the unit right here. And what that does pretty much is that every time you load a preset, you actually load 2 presets on the same layer on side A and side B, which you can access using the AB button right here. And after that, you can actually morph patch A into patch B and patch B back into patch A. And by doing this, you can actually access 2 drastically different sonic layers of the Nina by just turning this knob so really easily. The Nina also has not 1 but 2 VCAs, which allows for a pretty neat trick which Melbourne Instruments has labeled the infinite spin trick. And this alternates between both VCAs, creating this kind of surrounding 360 sound effects where the sound revolves around you either clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on which side you have the knob turned on. The Nina is also MP compatible and ready, so you'll be able to control it with your favorite MP controller such as an Expressive E Osmos or like me an Ableton Push 3. Melbourne Instruments made sure to include M3 preset in the Nina's library, and they just released a brand new bank of presets designed by James Terris, specifically tailored to work with the Osmos by Expressive E, so check that out. It is also worth noting that the morph modulation features that was added with the last firmware update works in conjunction with the MP compatibility, meaning that you can use the aftertouch or the mod wheel of your controller to control the A or B side of a layer on a per note basis. Alright, so now that I showed you the features which I think really make the Nina unique and special, I kind of want to just go over the rest of the unit with you quickly. So on the left here, we kind of have the brain of the machine, the LCD display which gives you all the menu information and preset information, 3 hotkeys that swap functions depending on the menu you're in. So right now you see it says bank, it lets me choose another bank, I can enter and load a preset, so those functions will change in function of the menu you're in. The mod button lets you access the mod matrix of the Nina with all the modulation sources listed here at the bottom and accessible with this row of keys. The layer button lets you access the layer setup menu where you can set up your layer, the number of voices, the number of layers you have, the mini channels, everything related to layer is accessible through the layer button. And then you have this little cluster of button at the bottom with the Arpeggiator menu because the Nina has an onboard Arpeggiator. This is your load and save buttons for anything that's related to presets and layers. This is your A/B button to load either an A or B preset, using for the morph function. And on the bottom row, you have the sequencer commands. So the Nina has an onboard sequencer, which you can access using this button here. And you can use this row of buttons as a little emergency keyboard. And let's say I want to create a sequence. I'm going to press Rec, access the keyboard. And I recorded it, and now I want to run it. So that is the sequencer and arpeggiator of Nina. It is pretty basic, but it does the job. And, in case you need an emergency arpeggiator or sequencer, it is here. Now let's look real quick over the control surface. So the Nina features 3 oscillators, 2 analog and 1 digital wavetable oscillator, and you can either fine-tune them or coarse tune them. And you'll feel the knob switch from an encoder to a notch configuration, which is really cool. Oscillator 1 also features a sub-oscillator, which can be activated using the sub button. And Oscillator 2 can be hard synced to Oscillator 1 using the sync button. Oscillator 3 is the digital wavetable oscillator, and you can choose the shape of your wavetable using the shape button, and then choose the wavetable position using the position button. I really love the fat and lush sound of the analog oscillators, and the digital wavetable oscillator is the perfect touch to add a bit of that digital crunch to your sound. Next to the oscillators, you'll find a mixer section in which you can mix the different oscillators together, and it also has a noise generator which provides different types of noise you can choose from using the type button. Next in the signal path is an overdrive circuit which feeds back a scaled down version of the signal back to the main output, and is a great way to achieve a punchier sound easily. You can activate it using the drive button and then choose the amount of drive you want to inject into your signal using the drive knob. Now let's talk about LFOs quickly. Nina features two LFOs and you can control them using the LFO 1 and 2 button at the bottom center of the unit. And then you can choose the LFO shape very easily using the LFO shape button. And then you'll find the usual suspect, the sine wave, triangle, square, ramp up, ramp down, and random. Next in the signal path is the Nina amazing sounding 4-pole transistor ladder filter. But when talking about the filters, I really like to let them do most of the work. So I'm just going to play around and play with the filter so that you can hear how it sounds and can make an opinion for yourself. Next in the signal path after the filter, you'll find two envelope generators. EG1 is the filter envelope and EG2 is the main envelope. But you can actually use EG1 as a modulation source for other destinations on the Nina via the mod matrix. And talking about the mod matrix, let's get into it real quick. To access the mod matrix, you have to press the mod button here. And then the way it works is pretty easy. So let's say, for example, I have my basic sound right now. And I want LFO 1 to modulate the cutoff frequency of the filter. All I have to do is press the mod button, then select LFO 3, which is already selected. And then I'm just gonna bring the cutoff filter all the way here, up. And now we can hear LFO 1. And now let's say I want my modulation wheel to modulate the cutoff frequency of the filter. I'm just going to press 8, so mod. I'm going to bring the cutoff all the way up, and lo and behold, the mod wheel now controls the cutoff frequency of the filter. So using the mod matrix of the Nina is actually really simple. And talking about the mod matrix, one of the coolest updates from the latest firmware update is the possibility to add morph as a destination in the mod matrix. So what that means is that, for example, I can now control the morph knob with my keyboard's aftertouch or my mod wheel. One of the last things I want to talk about in this video is the Nina's multi-timbral capabilities. As I said, you can play up to 4 layers at once and output them to 4 physical output in the back of the unit if you want to. So in the next example, I have a 3-layer arrangement with a bass at the bottom, some chords in the middle, and a top line at the very top. And it's all played live by the Nina and recorded multi-track into my DAW as it goes. The multi-timbral capabilities of the Nina is also a really cool way to turn it into a full-on analog drum machine. So you can access the layer setup menu by just pressing the layer button, and here on top of the multi-timbral setup you'll find a lot of other important settings, so I thought we'd take a closer look at that menu in particular. At the top of the menu you'll see which layer is currently active, so right now it's layer 1, and you can actually use the first 4 keys of the key row at the bottom to switch layer quickly, so right now layer 3, layer 4, back to layer 2 and 1. Second, you'll see the number of voices that are assigned to that layer. So that's important because, as you know, the Nina has 12 voice polyphony. So you can assign a total of 12 voices divided between the 4 layers. So right now I have 6 voices assigned to layer 1, but I could make that only 4 if I wanted. Then you have the output routing. So the Nina has several options for you to output any given layer to one of the 4 outputs, or a combination of 2 or 4 in the back of the unit. So you could say I want layer 1 to go only to output 1 of the Nina, or I want layer 1 to go to output 1 and 2, and etc. for each layer. Then you can set a low and high note per layer, so that means you could divide your MIDI controller in zone and control up to 4 layers at the same time. For example, layer 1 from C0 to C1, layer 2 from C#1 to C#2, layer 3 from D2 to D3, and etc. Then you can set the MIDI channel of the layer, which is really useful because that means you can sequence the Nina with a multi-MIDI channel sequencer and play multi-timbral arrangements live like that. Then you have the octave offset, and then 2 very important control: the MP mode on and off menu and the MP number of channels. So as I said earlier, the Nina is MP compatible, and you can control it with an MP controller, like for example the Osmos by Expressive E or the Ableton Push 3, and this is where you set the Nina to work with a controller like that. So it's pretty important, and you'll definitely have to look into that if you want to do this. Under that you have a volume control for the active layer, a poly mode that lets you set your layer in either legato, mono or polyphonic mode, and the Unisson voices control. So this is a really cool one. As I said, Nina has 12 voice polyphony, but that means it also has 12 voice unison, and this is where you can set the number of unison voices for an active layer. So right now I only have 1 voice of unison. Let me add all 12. And now let me add a little detune. The Nina also has a really cool panel mode with a ping pong mode. And a really nice spread mode that spreads the voices across the stereo field. There are other settings to look at in the layer setup menu, but these are really the crucial ones as far as I'm concerned, and I just wanted to give you a quick overview to give you a better idea of what the Nina can do. Last but not least, the Nina features a digital effect bus at the end of its signal path with 3 effects to choose from: chorus, delay and reverb, which you can use one at a time or simultaneously. So now that we talked about the Nina, we went through it, we heard it, I just want to address something that's been bugging me a bit on social media lately when I read comments about, those synth and those reviews, and it's always complaints about the price. So the Nina goes for around $3,600 US, and while I argue it is not cheap, I also want to make the case that for professional musicians, Spending somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,000 for a professional grade instrument is perfectly normal. This is the kind of money you'll spend, you'll invest into an instrument that's going to be with you for the rest of your life, you know. The other thing is, I've heard some complaints that, you know, like the motorized knobs are unnecessary, and I could not disagree more about this statement. The motorized knobs are awesome, and they're amazing for a bunch of reasons. First, I really appreciate the risk taking. It takes some guts to do what Melbourne Instruments is doing and develop a new technology that's not available yet. It is now because they decided to go for it. And for technology to get cheaper and maybe one day even the standard, well, you have to have pioneers, you have to have people who develop the technology, and you have to have people who support them. So in that sense, I am so grateful to Melbourne Instruments for actually bringing this dream that many of us have had to life into an actual thing we can see and touch and make music with. It's awesome. So in my opinion, $3,600 is absolutely the right price. I can think of at least a couple of synths that do a lot less than the Nina can for more money. So, you know, I think it's really fairly priced, and yeah, that's my humble opinion on this. So this pretty much brings us to the end of this review slash demo slash opinion piece about the Nina by Melbourne Instruments. Obviously, I think at this point you know that I love this synth. I think Melbourne Instruments is doing a terrific job at providing support for the people who purchased it. I can't wait to see what they come up with next, what are the next presets they'll come up with, what are the next functionality they'll add through a firmware update. In the meantime, thank you so much for checking out this video. We're gonna close with a closing demo. Let me know if you'd like to see more content like this on this channel. I'd be happy to do more of this. And I will see you next time. This was Gabe with GBR Music. Thank you so much, and à bientôt.